All right. Our next speaker actually had a question and I didn't take it, so I might be in trouble. So if you could welcome to the stage Derek Madden, CEO of Moorabool Shire Council.
Thanks a lot, David, and really great to see this turnout here today and to see so many people interested in this topic. But it's not just about the EPA. We've had some video surveillance across the Shire for the last while, and some of the activity that's happening out there with illegal dumping, with people using air tasker and these kind of things to dump rubbish in the Shire, is quite distressing, and the level of ambivalence to the damage and the cost to the Shire is quite astounding. I probably would like to say thank you to the person that mentioned around the levy. I never really considered that one, but that's probably something I'm going to put in my back pocket now. And the reality is this is very much an emotional topic for us, because it just doesn't pass the pub test. If you were to just put it as a pub test, it just doesn't pass. That the council is being hit with this tab. It equates to about $25 for every rateable property in the Shire, and like every rural community, rate capping and every other charge that's coming on council, and then for this to come in a year where costs are tight, was a very difficult one for this council to stomach. So we did go quite hard on the EPA, to the extent that I was talking to them last week, and the conversation started with me saying, please don't bring up the cylinders, we're just going to end up in an argument, and they just couldn't leave it. They just kept going back to the cylinders, and hence we ended up in a little bit of a disagreement, shall we say. For all of the councils that are out there, I think from my point of view, I would like to just thank Latrobe Council for putting the motion up at the MAV Council. I think it really shows that when councils band together, we can actually get things done, and that was passed at the State Council, and now we will be calling upon, one of the things coming out of this, we will be calling upon the MAV to act on behalf of all councils, because this is an issue that actually, whereas we were able to pay the $500,000, we're a little bit bigger than some councils, but the reality is, as was indicated, this was only 2 trailers. That's all this was. It wasn't a large number of trailers. As you can see, I haven't even started my presentation yet, so I could talk about this all day. The reality is that if this was to happen in many other councils, it would be a catastrophe. We have satellite imagery of these containers coming on site. So once we realized that they were on site, we actually got the satellite imagery. We actually seen them coming on, and we can actually see them going. We can see quite a lot of these containers leaving this site. 2 of them went to the side of the road, but quite a lot of them could be sitting in your Shire, because we've no idea where they are. I don't know if the EPA knows where they are. I don't know who knows where they are. But I would have thought a bit of common sense would have been to go in and geotag some of these things when you knew they were there. But common sense seems to be in short supply on some of this stuff. So I'll stick to my presentation now then. Just trying to figure out how to move this along. That's this one here, yeah. That's it. No, I'm gone wrong here, am I? The green one, is it? Yeah, this is it. Okay. So just to give you some context of Moorabool Shire Council and what's going on in the state. So we've had 3,500 litter jobs completed by the Shire. We have a crew that does this. Again, it's a cost to the ratepayer. With changes to legislation, whether that'll be able to be absorbed within the waste levy going forward, we don't know. And the new guidelines will come out, and that could be an extra cost that'll have to be borne within the rate revenue. Again, it's something for everybody to be aware of. And because of where we're geographically positioned, and I don't know if some of the footage is going to be shown of some of the illegal dumpers we've caught recently, but 76% of them are traced from outside the Shire. So it's not local people. It's people, as I say, going on Airtasker or whatever it might be, builders, whatever it might be, coming into the Shire. We're seen as an easy touch. And what they don't realise is that we're actually filming them, and they're getting a knock on the door very shortly afterwards, and they're getting fined. And I think we're over $250,000 in fines at this stage. I'd much prefer that they didn't dump, because the cost of delivering and cleaning up is a lot more than that. In addition, there's across Victoria, there's over 33,000 illegal dumping incidents reported this year so far. So that's the scale of the issue that's happening. We have a landfill levy, we have various levies across the state, that these funds need to come out of consolidated revenue for state government and come in and actually solve this problem, because it's a common problem across everywhere. And it's no one issue that's really getting dumped. It is building waste, construction, tyres, asbestos, household garbage. I'm sure we're all aware of it, and Louise mentioned the soil. So I think from our point of view is that, you know, as we move towards this housing boom, 1.2 million houses over 5 years, considering the issues we're already having, this issue is only going to get worse. So from our point of view, something needs to be done, and, you know, policy reform isn't really optional anymore. It's something that just needs to happen, and the Moorabool case can't be seen as a precedent. It really needs to be dealt with. Okay. Just trying to find out what's happening now. No? Okay. So the $500,000 bill, how did this come about? Now, Louise has touched on it. What she didn't touch on was I received a phone call from the EPA, and the EPA informed me that they had contacted our enforcement team and had asked that council go out and place some cones around some trucks that were on the side of the road and contained, we didn't know, but at that stage it contained these cylinders. Our crew went out. I didn't realise what that was actually doing, was actually saying we're responsible for it now. So talk about being suckered into something. That's how it happens. So you just need to be very aware of that. So the financial burden, as I say, it's $500,000. What really was quite frustrating is as we began to unravel it, we realised that the police knew about these cylinders. We realised that CFA knew about these cylinders. All of the agencies knew about these cylinders except for council. So the EPA never once picked up the phone and said, we've identified an illegal dump site of extremely hazardous materials. These are their words, that are an imminent danger to the public. And if you look at some of the footage there, these are exposed to the weather elements at this moment in time. Currently, they're sitting there in shipping containers that don't have any sealing on them. Those two there, they're just full of those cylinders. So the EPA, on the one hand, are telling us it's an imminent danger to the public, hence we couldn't get a stay, but nothing has happened on that site since. It's still there, all the cylinders are there, to the extent that we had to put security on the site when we were cleaning it up, because we didn't want any more cylinders coming out of there once the illegal dumpers found out that if you put it on the side of the road, council was going to clean it. So we had to pay for security on top of the cleanup. So that was another one. And I suppose from our point of view is the precedent this is setting. That's our concern. We've paid the bill, we're moving on. Well, we're not really, but you know, the reality is we've paid the bill. From our point of view, the state needs to take some responsibility for this. This is not a Moorabool problem, this is a sector-wide problem. So when I look at the timeline, and we can go back on near maps and we can identify this, from about October 2022, the trucks started arriving on this site. 9th of March was when I received that fateful phone call that, you know, everything was nice. It's part of my quarterly catch-up with the EPA. It was mentioned, you know, it was probably a half-hour, 45-minute conversation, and this was mentioned for 1 minute. It was a non-event. The EPA confirmed they were investigating a site in the Shire then, and then just before I went on leave, actually, they suddenly shifted responsibility and said it was going to be our responsibility to clean this up. Now, I'm happy for this to be recorded and the EPA to come and sue me, because this is all factual. And I kind of look at it, and then the notice came in, and we worked our way through that. But the reality is VCAT made a decision, and even in the VCAT decision, they said, as Louise had pointed out, that the EPA should consider cost sharing. We were actually threatened, we were actually going to be hit with their costs on this one as well, because they were so upset with some of the media campaign we were running at that time. So I think from my point of view is it was basically the big arm of government coming down to a small council, small rural council, and basically saying, clean it up, you have to do it, you've no choice. And I suppose from my point of view is simple questions: where's the rest of these trucks? This material is so hazardous, so flammable. I would encourage people to read what the EPA actually said as part of that VCAT submission around these cylinders. But yet we've got an area within our Shire that's actually sitting there full of them. And the reality is, I think it's about 27 trucks have left that site full of cylinders that we have no idea where they are in the state. So they're sitting somewhere out there, hopefully not on the side of our road, and hopefully not on the side of yours as well, but the reality is they are sitting somewhere, and that's just a statement of fact. You can see the aerial footage there, which has the trucks on site, and a lot of those have been moved. So I think from my point of view and the point of view of Moorabool, what we're asking for is that there needs to be some change in legislation on this. The current legislation fails to protect us, and really, as Louise has pointed out, it's not polluter pays, it's the last person standing pays. We were probably seen as a bit of an easy touch, and the reality is it was clear it wasn't even our land, it's Crown land that's vested to us. So what's going to happen? We have reserves in our Shire that are DELP owned and are run by a committee of management of DELP. What happens if these cylinders appear there? Is the EPA going to sue the government? Is it going to go after the government themselves? And that was the question I wanted to ask Louise. Well, what happens with that? VicTrack land, another example. There's plenty of illegal waste on VicTrack land. So the EPA going after VicTrack? Why have they just suddenly decided to go after a council? Because it doesn't stack up that the material is as dangerous as they say it is if they're leaving it sitting there open to the elements on a site that's currently there. And we've got drone footage, we can go in and see it. And there's activity happening on that site quite often. Probably one of the frustrations is that we have gone through a series of FOIs that were mentioned. But in addition to that, there was an EPA camera at the entrance to that site. Now, when those trucks were moved from that particular private land, somebody had to bring a truck in there. We've asked for the footage so we could go after that. We've been told we can't have that as part of an ongoing legal process. That legal process has been going on for nearly 3.5 years now. If they just gave us the footage, we'd probably just take them to court in a matter of weeks. So the issue here is the inactivity. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We're now being pushed through a separate process on FOI because every option has been rejected. So we're still working on it. And as I say, from a sector point of view, this is an issue not just for Moorabool. Moorabool's issue has passed, but it is an issue now for the whole sector, and the sector needs to probably come together and decide how it's actually going to work and find a solution. We have seen the recent announcement with the state government funding, but that's really only the tip of the iceberg, and it's 50% of the costs. You're limited to an application of 50% of your costs. So what we've done at Moorabool is we have surveillance and technology, but anybody who's out there trying to get that technology, it's actually in short supply. So we'd actually like to get more cameras, but it's actually quite difficult to get them at this moment in time because as councils, we're all competing against each other to get these cameras and get this technology. As I mentioned, we have a rapid cleanup response with 3,500 jobs completed already. Now, That's currently sitting within the waste levy. Now, if that comes out of the waste levy and goes into the general rates, is that a service we're going to continue with? I don't know at this moment in time. That'll be something that we will discuss at the next budget. We need a targeted communication. We need to work with the builders around us. And, from our point of view, is we've issued a lot of fines lately, but also today, the illegal summit, as we're calling it, I suppose from our point of view, this is just a start. And to be honest with you, we probably question as to why we've had to do this. This is really a statewide initiative and should be led by the peak bodies. It's not a Moorabool specific issue. So I suppose despite everything we're doing, is, as Louise has said, at this moment in time with the legislation, we actually can't prevent the EPA. We went to VCAT, fully known in all likelihood we would lose, but we had to go because we had to get it out into the open. And if you look at the VCAT hearing, we added extra evidence at the end because we knew we were going to lose, so we figured we might as well throw the kitchen sink at it and get as much as we can into the public domain. So it was a challenging time for council, and probably still is, because we're still in the financial year where we're doing this, so we still have to account for this money that has left to Shire. So probably from my point of view, is what we need is the legislative reform, as Louise had mentioned, and I suppose I probably leave that to the lawyers and those kind of things, and we'll do what we can. But the EPA has to take some accountability. Even the judgment has mentioned there has to be accountability, and there doesn't seem to be any. I think one of the things we really need is the cross-council intelligence sharing. It's no good if we can put up cameras and stop the illegal dumping happening in Moorabool Shire Council and they just skip across to Hepburn, or they just move across to Golden Plains. That's not a solution. That's just passing your problem on to someone else, and then they're going to end up with the same problem. So as a sector, that's really not a solution. We probably need adequate resourcing. So I don't know the answer to that one, but the reality is surveillance technology and waste and these kind of things, and just saying it can't be part of a waste charge is not a solution. And we need a framework that protects council, because I have not seen any case where a state-managed landowner has been hit with a charge by the EPA. And I'm sure we all know of examples across the state where there's significant illegal waste sitting on state-controlled land. Why has council been picked up here and no one else? So I suppose from my point of view, looking at today, really what we want is to engage on the MAV motion. I think through the MAV there should be a meeting requested with the Environment Minister. There's no good in just Moorabool doing it, or peri-urban, or the Greater Ballarat Regional Councils. It needs to be from the peak body. And just some intelligence sharing protocols. We have any number of footage of illegal dumpers. Some of it's unbelievable, some of it's quite funny. The lengths people go to get rid of a mattress, I'll never understand, but they do, and they get caught on camera doing it as well. And probably from our point of view is, there is the option of we might receive 50% of our funds back, but we want full reimbursement for this, because it's something that shouldn't have happened in the first place, and people need to be held accountable. We want the legislative reform. I would personally think there should be an investigation into the EPA practices. It's not consistently applied across the state. Why was this one picked? And a protection framework, and then adequate funding going forward. Too much of the waste revenue is going into consolidated revenue. If you've got an issue, it needs to be taken out of there, and it needs to be given to the people who are going to solve the problem. So to me, I think every council has a stake in this fight. This Moorabool precedent cannot become the precedent for all councils. I mentioned earlier on that I had a smidgen of sympathy for the EPA, because they're not exactly funded to clean up these ones as well. So there needs to be adequate resourcing. I don't know. I'm not saying it's councils that need to be resourced. I'm not saying it's the EPA needs to be resourced. I'm just saying there needs to be resources put into this across the state, so that these issues can be resolved and individual councils are not being picked off and played against each other. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. Yeah.
Good morning. Jody Reardon from Latrobe City Council. We wrote a letter to Mr. Dimopoulos, I think that's how you pronounce it, when we heard about the Moorabool Shire matter. Our mayor was, well, we're keen in trying to address dumping litter in general, but when we saw that, it could happen to all of us, so we felt pretty strongly about it. I think one of the things when the barrister, Ms. Hicks, was giving an overview, she felt there needs to be legislative reform. In other acts, there's codes of practice or practice notes that advises the hierarchy, how you go about those things in terms of how you apply it. I don't necessarily think there needs to be a change in terms of identifying the hierarchy. They just need to apply what the principles are, which polluter pays first and in that order. The other thing is, well, just for your own reference, and I've sent John a copy of these letters this morning, just in case you haven't had them. Over the last couple of years, I've been in this role now 4 years. Our EPA levies have increased for landfills from about 1.3 up to nearly 2 million. And they're projected to increase more than CPI for the next couple of years. So I think genuinely, if we talked about 50% reimbursement, even if we asked collectively, and this is just proactively putting this forward as a suggestion, that if we could secure 50% of those fees that go directly to this issue, that might be a proactive way rather than actually saying, which we all agree with, the EPA need to do more. Because I agree with you, the amount of instances we come across private landowners, small private landowners have been hit, but not large industrial companies not been hit. Big track, we know contamination issues but not being addressed. I fully agree, but I also think if we're going to be constantly going on, where we really want to be frustration, where it's probably where we're at, we probably need to look at what proactive solutions we can meet them halfway, which kind of goes to that whole point that they use at times, co-regulator, when they pick and choose that option as well. So not really a question, but more of a kind of a statement in terms of how we can move forward.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I fully agree. I don't think there's any one easy solution to this. It's going to be across the board, and the EPA will be part of that solution without a doubt. I'm happy to take any other questions on any of the issues.